people who were not here yesterday and people who are not familiar with this beautiful facility of ours, the Diamond Lecture Theatre. If you go outside, either preferably, let's say through this entrance, and you turn right, and then you turn immediate right again. The first door to your right is labeled ladies, which means it's for ladies. And then the second door to the right is gentlemen, which means it's for written gents, actually, which means it's for gentlemen. You can also use the rear exit. If you use the rear exit, then you will have to go downstairs because we do not have any ablution facilities upstairs. At this point, I'm going to hand over to our session chair, who is our research board chair, Professor Shifam. You can applaud him just in case you don't applaud him later.
Thank you very much. I would like to welcome you all this morning. Let me just, Chairman of Council, in absentia, Dr. Eima Suka, any members of the Council here present, Vice Chancellor, and again in absentia, PVC, Academic Affairs, Professor Moyana, not seen here yet, and PVC, Strategic Implementation and Industrialization, Professor Mboa is coming. Executive Director, Research and Innovation, Professor Mtamalengwe, welcome, ma'am. Executive Director, Quality Assurance and Professional Development, Professor Janda, in absentia. The Registrar, Dr. Mtongoren. Librarian, Dr. H. Konzo. The BESA, Mr. E. Dlamini, Executive Deans, here present. Captains of Industry. The Chairperson of the Research Week Committee, Dr. N. Wekwete. Chairpersons and Directors of Institutes, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. That you welcome. Okay. We have our third keynote this morning, Integrating Humanities and Sciences in Education 5.0 towards Achievement of Vision 2030 by Dr. A. Namo. She's a senior lecturer in archaeology and heritage management and very passionate about the subject. And if you don't become an archaeologist this morning, or if we don't merge the two, humanities and sciences, there will be something wrong with you. Just note that she is passionate about a subject area. So let me welcome Dr. Namo. Please come and make your presentation. I wish I could entertain you. I can do a poem which I did many years ago. Yeah? So this is a 1983 poem.
Oh, wow.
Kwachisa phansi kwaqanda phezulu. Impilo yabonakala incipha okwentunja yosungulo. Zezwakala zikhala izalukazi maye indala longana. Kwachisa kwathi mfu. Waswelakala okungadliwa. That was my O level. Yeah. Translation, of course, someone. Yeah, that was an all. We had to memorize a lot of poems, and that was one of them. So I may be a scientist, but I know something about the humanities. Yeah. Okay.
He doesn't have another poem, so let's.
He's coming. Okay. Okay, now. Sorry about that.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I hope I will live up to the hype. academics say we don't know how to do protocols. So I'll do that. Today I'm going to talk about integrating humanities and science, and I have to put in the passion, as you heard. This is a topic that I came up with because of my experience with my colleagues, both in the humanities and in the sciences at this university. I know that most of you would know this. Those of us who are in the humanities, when people say, let's do innovation, we say, that is not our business. No, they are not talking to us. We often say they are not talking to us. This is why most people, if we look at the participation in the research week, just because somebody somewhere mentioned innovation, most of my colleagues say it's not for us. At the same time, when we look at my colleagues in the sciences, I have an advantage because archaeology is on the boundary of sciences and humanities. And I talk to both. Usually, most of my colleagues in the sciences, they are doing their business. They do not know what is happening up there, and they seem not to think it's necessary. This is why I'm going to talk about this. I worked on the presentation with Dr. Jawangwe. I also consulted Prof. Moyana, but she said you did most of the work, so yeah. All right. I want to make a few disclaimers. I'm not going to define science. I know this is a sticking point. People want to say, what is science? What are you saying? This is not scientific or something. I'm not going to get into that debate. I'm sure there's somebody who has a DPhil in that area in linguistics or something. So what I'm going to do is to talk about humanities as we know them at the University of Zimbabwe, and sciences as we also perceive them at the University of Zimbabwe, and look at how we can combine these two in order to make, to attain the vision that our country has set itself on. It is not about individuals, but it is about collective work that can bring us to attain what we want. I got this definition of humanities. Like I said, I'm not defining science, but I will try to define humanities. And I got this from the National Foundation of the Arts. Obviously, it's not mine. It's what they use in the United States. But I prefer it because it mentions archaeology somewhere. So I think it's a good definition. But those are some of the disciplines that are usually put under humanities. But I actually like this definition better, which says humanities involves the study and analysis of what is, and by identifying and evaluating opportunities for improvement, consciously contributing to what will be. This is the definition that I like better. Why? Because according to Goodwin, it is also the same definition for innovation. So if humanities are analyzing and coming up with what will be, so they are innovative. They are innovation. It's the same definition according to Goodwin. But I also want to look at the historical context in which we talk about innovation, whereby when we talk of innovation as Zimbabwe, we are not creating a new thing. We are not coming up with a new concept. This is something that others have done, and I'm arguing that what we need to do in order to achieve our vision is to learn from other people's mistakes, what others have done in other countries in terms of looking at the contribution of humanities and science, rather than to follow what the mistakes that they have done, and we fall into the same trap and then come up with probably the same solutions that they are implementing now. So instead, we should look at their mistakes and avoid them. That is a less expensive way of doing things. So, what are the lessons that are coming from other continents, Europe especially, other countries, Japan? You find that in these other countries, there have been emphasis on science as a way of attaining innovation, as a way of attaining industrialization, as a way of developing. But they have, of course, done that for a long time, longer maybe than us, and we need to learn from what they've achieved through that, and what they've also not achieved through the same thing. So we have heard of STEM, and I'm telling you, my colleagues in the humanities do not like that term at all. If you want to annoy someone, you can start talking about STEM. Mainly because they think, to some extent, that it is exclusive of the humanities, and it means they are saying, get away from here. So in Europe, they have emphasized innovation, especially from engineering. Some Norwegian scholar argued that they've actually emphasized what they call universities of engineering, such that engineering should take over universities and create industries and things like that. So for a long time, probably towards 30 years now, there was this emphasis on STEM, on engineering, as a driver of national development. But yet they left out something critical, what he calls NAIL, narrative analysis, interpretation, and literacy, which is the basis of humanities, to analyze, to narrate what is there, and things like that. And of course, literacy. If you are not literate, it's difficult to go anywhere. We were having a discussion about that actually before I came here, that if you are not literate, is the degree necessary? Of course it's necessary because it gives you literacy. So what is the role of humanities in innovation? I'm not going to talk about what I know. I'm going to talk about what others have said. As I said, we need to learn from other people's mistakes. So what is the role of humanities? They generate knowledge about ideas, people, the world around us, and the social being. Somebody said that through the study of the art, music, literature, history, and other humanities, we gain a greater understanding of the human condition than biological and physical sciences alone can provide. So if you are going to be coming with an innovative idea, you have to understand the people that are going to either use it or reject it. for that matter. So we need to understand, the humanities bring that understanding that is beyond just the physical. And according to the same person who was writing in the Scientific American, he argued that innovations based on research results in the natural sciences and medicine are more likely to be successful if their implementation is carried out in collaboration with humanities. And this is my argument. Because the innovation is one thing, but it has to be implemented somewhere. And in order for the implementation to be successful, you need to understand people. And many innovations can fail because of religious reasons, because of language. That's the language that you are going to talk to communicate it with. And because of culture. Yesterday, with the keynote presentations that were there, I was thinking to myself that yes, with the urban agriculture, we can come up with innovations, a lot of innovations, but if we do not consider why people are practicing urban agriculture, we may fail. The cultural implications, the cultural reasons why people are practicing agriculture, we may actually fail to improve anything. For example, I was saying that you can get 2,000 square meters of land and you build your house and you have all that other space left. And then if you are Western, to some extent you put on a loan. If you are like me, if my mother comes to visit me and she finds that I have a lot of lawn with no garden of vegetables, I'll be in trouble because she expects me to do something with that land. So this is the cultural implications. You cannot you can't understand why people are doing things without contextualizing them in the cultural context. Religion, something can be rejected just because the religion is saying something else. My religious beliefs are not accepting this. So if you are going to be innovative and you do not consider that context, you may fall into problems. And of course, humanities encourage creativity. I'm not going to say that scientists are not creative, but humanities encourages creativity. And this is somebody, actually, a scientist, actually two scientists, a physicist and an engineer, argued that perhaps art, literature, music portfolios should become part of science and engineering application processes because they develop what they called the whole brain. Apparently, this is from science, I'm sure. We have the right brain. I'm sure from the medical doctors, they know we have the right brain and the left brain. The right is for humanities and the left for science. And apparently when you are doing engineering, I hope that's not true, because it means that you are only developing the left. So we need to develop the whole person. The whole person. Let's put in the humanities there. And because the right brain is where the creativity, artistry, intuition, and also funders is very important for innovation, as you know. So it resides in the right brain. We need to develop that as well. That's the same. Of course, I'm passionate about archaeology. There's no way I can have all these people listening to me and not talk about archaeology. So this is where of a stone tool. And this was done about 500,000 years ago. Where actually the discussion that we were having, they were saying that, somebody was saying that you don't need a degree to make something. Because obviously, people have been making things for years without degrees. That is right. And this is from 500,000 years, and this was actually innovative. If you look at this, this is how we began to make tools. This is how we became innovative 2 million years ago. And after that, of course, we started to improve it. We got there, and this is about 30,000 years ago. And as you can see, I always say that technology, of course, from archaeology, I have learned that technology always starts or begin with a big thing, and then we miniaturize as we go. Look at the cell phone. It follows the same trend. So there's nothing new that is happening today. The same with the innovations from archaeology. I mean, this is Great Zimbabwe. This is a marvel and most engineers today can still not produce that. Because this is dry stone walls. And this is dry stone walling. 2 meters, if those who have gone to Great Zimbabwe, you know this, 2 meters high, more than 2 meters high, dry stone walling, meaning that it doesn't have any mortar, cement in between. Great engineering. And what I'm saying, and of course this is what I believe to be heritage-based innovations. Where else can you learn something apart from this? And of course, if you are going to be, if we are going to be innovative, if we are going to be creating anything new that we can present to the world, the only source of that, something that is unique, is our heritage. Because if we are going to produce what others are producing, what's the use in that? So if you are then going to be able to come up with innovations, you have to come up to us and we tell you what has been there. I love this statement that I got apparently from a lawyer who said, without what was, nothing is. So you need to know what was in order for you to come up with what is. So definitely, I'm hoping that this can convince anyone, as Prof. Chifamba said, that we need to combine our knowledge, which we get from history, which we get from archaeology, which we get from the humanities, and combine that to come up with innovative ideas to solve our problems. And of course, creative soft skills, humanities develop soft skills, creativity and communication. We were talking about communication, how scientists have problems with communicating their ideas. I hope that is improving, but it's hopefully I am trying not to offend anyone. But it's and this is a statement that interested me a lot. According to Hartley, he argued that after studying the Silicon Valley, which we all know and admire most likely, he argued that it is not, the greatest secrets of the Silicon Valley is not about the coding, the zeros and all, but these are what they call fuzzies from Stanford, people who are coming coming from the humanities who can manage the codes, who can sell the codes, who can communicate the codes into what people, normal people understand. And these are the these are the ones that make the Silicon Valley. So what it means is that for us, Zimbabwe, if we want to move towards that vision, we cannot afford to concentrate on the zeros and the codes that are coming up from the technology only, because then we will not be able to communicate that. So that is my point. And he also stated that the leaders of tomorrow's technology companies, most likely some of us want to be there, are those who will be, who have the passion and the curiosity. And this is coming from the humanities. We have to combine the balance between the phases and the text. So this is what others are now saying after 20, 30 years of experience with innovation. And he also stated that the paradox is that parents and students, I love this because I've heard this a lot. Parents and students focus on job-oriented measures. Some students would say, my parents said I cannot do this degree because but yet human resource managers for any job, and I know employers who are here who agree with me. You want somebody who has whatever skills that they have, but you also need somebody who has problem solving, teamwork, professionalism, and these are the things that are developed in the humanities. I think I should move faster. So I'm saying that as Zimbabwe, we should not we should join the train of innovation today by looking at other people's mistakes and avoid them and move on to where they are today, rather than try to do what they've already done and the mistakes that they have encountered. These are just some of the examples of universities that are combining humanities and sciences. This is from University of Oxford, their innovation center, and they are engaging with the humanities. This is a paper from that was presented at the World Economic Forum, where they were arguing for the teaching of humanities in innovation. This is from Singapore, where the University of Technology has a school of humanities, because they have already realized that we need to combine these two. What should we do? We need to break down the disciplinary walls and foster cross-specialization. This is an example of, this is what I'm saying, that we have the scientists, don't be offended, scientists. This is the only cartoon that I could get that was not gender sensitive. Others were either male or female. I think in science there's a lot of gender assignment. So this is the only one. So I'm saying that we need to combine science and humanities. Most humanities are covering their eyes. They see no evil because they don't want, they are thinking that we are excluded, we are not, we don't know what to do here. I'm saying that we need to open our eyes and embrace each other. As you can see, it's also not gendered. I prefer that it's that way. All right, I think humanities, we need to transform. There is obviously no way we cannot transform. There is obviously no way when we are getting into a different age, we can remain the same. So humanities, there is no way they cannot transform. And this is the fear in most of the disciplines in the humanities, that they are going to die out. No, from an archaeologist who believe in evolution, you need to evolve and transform and become something else. We need to generate knowledge that is useful today, not knowledge that was useful, that we are used to. It cannot be business as usual. We need to generate knowledge, which is what we do. Generate knowledge that is useful. Today, we need to tell the scientists what to change, because we know what people need. We need to tell people, the scientists what to change, when change is necessary, where change is necessary, and whether it is sustainable. Because sometimes change is not sustainable, and sometimes you find that we revert back to our normal or old ways of doing things. So we need that. There is a saying by Atlee which says, as we develop more deep learning artificial intelligence in engineering, we also need deep thinking humans. And of course, that's where the humanities come in. So the next generation of people are those who will be at the intersection of the arts and the sciences. And that is where the future is. I think the role of the university, I cannot go without saying the role of the university. The role of the university, because the university is what has to make this possible, is to break down these walls, not to leave the walls as they are today, because obviously that is not going to make us achieve our vision. All right. I have to, yes, I also have to say this. Sorry. I want to draw your attention to this, and especially to the humanities. Until the lion learns to ride, the story of the hunter will always glorify, the story of the hunt, it's supposed to be the story of the hunt, will always glorify the hunter. If the humanities are not going to learn to write their own story, the story will always glorify the scientists. I think I'll end there.
I told you that she's very passionate about the subject. Let's take questions. Are there questions for her while these guys load the next presentation? Any questions? Are there questions for Dr. Namo? Right at the back there. Yeah. So when we were walking, the executive was moving around, we were seeing all these scientific engineering things, and the Vice Chancellor kept saying, yeah, you're right, but it's almost like the way it is put together. You guys, so the students in engineering need to work together with students in humanity so that the presentation of it, I mean, it's a nice thing. We're seeing all these robots and things, but presentation here, there was a big problem. So I think that's what Dr. Namo was trying to communicate. Let's have the question.
Thank you very much. I think it's a comment. First of all, I think I'm very excited, Doc, that this is one of the first presentations that is beginning to critically look at 5.0 and Vision 2030. I think we've tended to over-celebrate without critically engaging it. Then secondly, I think, of course, it was humorous, but you tended to unwittingly reinforce the binaries, for instance, by suggesting that humanities inform science. In fact, where I come from, that is theater drama, some of the most celebrated artists, creative people have got a strong science background. So you are right, there's some complementarity, but I think and then secondly, in your presentation, sometimes, but I think it was corrected later, you were suggesting that innovation is in science. But I think you can have innovation in humanities and innovation in science. Thank you very much for that. Scientists also inform humanities. They are not, it's not like it's humanities only enhance science. Great artists have come from scientists. Thank you.
Next question. Yes, please, Prof. I think you can shout, Prof.
No, I just wanted to, having listened to this presentation, I felt that we are talking about polarization. And I'm very pleased that in our strategic plan, we are talking of having groups which are interdisciplinary, because the research has to have an input when you're actually starting from designing it, where you are sitting together as scientists and those from humanities and creating an idea for innovation. So I have stayed a long time in academia, and we seem to have these walls where we're saying that the scientists, the University of the South and the University of the North. I think those, if we were a team, a University of Zimbabwe academic team, designing innovations together, then those walls will be broken. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So let me have two more questions, then we are done. Dr. Namo, please come up here.
Thank you, Dr. Namo, for that presentation. I really enjoyed it. Mine, I think, is more of a comment, and the comment is on whole brain functioning. And I think the educationists who are here will agree that indeed our education system crippled us, because it concentrated more on the left brain strong, those were analytic, as compared to those who were creative. If you remember, maybe you're still very young, when we grew up, those who did not quite do well, they went to F2 schools to do agriculture, carpentry, the things that matter now, the things that we must do and sell. So really, I think our education now must evoke whole brain functioning.
Last question. Is that the question?
Yes. It's a very simple question. If I'm in the faculty of arts and I come up with an innovation to, like, at the moment fuel is a problem, and I design a car which doesn't use fossil fuel, will the scientists take me seriously?
All right. Thank you, everyone, for the contributions. Most of them were comments, but I want to talk a little bit about how scientists are artists as well. Actually, most creative people are artists. So if you are not, if you don't have some artistry, you may have difficulties in coming up with creativity or innovations. So I totally agree that it's not the fact said that humanities should inform science. Obviously, it is a two-way traffic. And this is exactly what I'm arguing for, that we need to engage. We need to break down the walls and come up with something that is for all of us, not just coming from one side, because obviously those do not work. Unfortunately, the presentation was long. Most of the things that others were bringing up were already there in the presentation. That what we have to do is to focus on the groups that we are looking at from the beginning, because most of the times we waste time coming up with an innovation that may not work, not because it's a bad innovation, but because it needs some tweaking to make it work, which tweaking you may get from somebody who thinks differently. So in order for us to move with speed, we need to create interdisciplinary groups from the beginning. That is so true. And for his comment, I am sure that things are changing. Yes, in the past, maybe scientists would not have taken you seriously, and they would say, what do you know? But I think things are changing. If I had finished my presentation, I was going to show you something that I actually worked with an engineer. We are working on creating an African watch, which we have already patented, so that others will not have an idea of going and creating it for themselves. So we worked with engineer Mushib to create this design, and very soon we will have a model of it. But that was not Engineer Mushiri's idea, it was my idea, which I took to Engineer Mushiri. He took me seriously and he created that, and he was very excited. So I can assure you, engineers will listen to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nama. Let me invite the Vice Chancellor who wants to make a comment.
Dr. Ramo, thanks very much for the presentation, and to everybody, the listeners, thank you very much. I actually was praying that you delay the presentation because I particularly wanted to listen to this presentation because it is very relevant at this point in the institution where I think we need to consider the points that she was making very seriously. Let me start by saying I went to Kaya College where my son was studying, and then I asked the headmaster that my son was doing art and design and technology takes physics. So I'm a parent. The headmaster could not quite say you are crazy, but you know the different words that they can use and say, but he said this has never happened. But say you might mislead the child and so on, different ways. But I was really of the conviction that it is when we combine art and science that we begin to see things differently. And I firmly believe in that. I studied science, but I'm a very good artist. And I think it has its own benefit. So the son studied the physics and passed the physics with a D. And that was good enough to make a breakthrough. Now I see what he's doing after studying architecture and revisiting all this art and so on, and I'm satisfied. And the best there is at the school where he left was that the headmaster said, "You were right." So I wasn't crazy after all. So the moral of the story is that innovation comes from the interfaces. In between disciplines is where we are searching for innovation going into the future. So as we begin now to design from here presentation, which I think can be repackaged and then represented at some point, we need to appreciate that we will need to look at the terms not from the very basic way we've always understood science. Engineering is no more about blocks that make engines. It is about creativity and innovation. So you can engineer in art, you can engineer in social science, you can engineer in any discipline. The word engineering has changed the term. Although fundamentally we still need to talk about making things happen and make those things. But I think that's where I thought I would add to this presentation and say, as an institution, consider that very seriously. What is it that we are calling engineering? So this narrative for this term, it is something that we should make ourselves as a university, to say, how do we define STEM? Don't get it defined for you by others. If it does, then it just means science, engineering, mathematics, something. But mathematics is an art. So let's interrogate, this is a university, interrogate that. What people are saying is they need products that ordinarily come from people who understand science. So I think that combination of people who understand where they create and go to Dr. Mshiri and say, how do we bring this out? I want a camera that gives me 360 in terms of angle. People can now photograph a stadium that is round. That doesn't come from engineering. That comes from art. That comes from humanities. The people who say that's what they want to see. So I just thought, sorry for your time, but I just thought I would say that so that the institution knows where we are going. So this issue of collaboration between the humanities, if the humanities think they are being left out, it is because they are not being progressive. They are remaining on a pedestal of what they call humanities, which should not be moved. All other people should bring things to them. Is that a challenge, Yes. Right. So it is the humanities that should demand the science. It is the science that should provide for what humanities, because humanities is about being what humans want. So if we have a weak humanities, we don't develop. I just thought I would make that point. So the people who are letting us down are actually humanities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, VC, for giving us that insight. I think we're all feeling challenged, but I think the issue of collaboration is very, very clear. That issue of collaboration is very important. In fact, when the VC was sharing and he was talking about his intervention when the father was speaking, not the VC, when the father was speaking in view of that physics intervention he did for his son, I was really wondering with respect to the combinations which us as UZ now encourage the students who are in our high schools to have vis-a-vis our programs over here. I was just wondering now. I was viewing him as a father, and then I was seeing the VC beside him, and seeing the interesting contradiction with respect to if someone comes to me as an employee of UZ right now and says, I want to do Bible studies in physics, I'll probably just stop them right there to say, I think your physics or your Bible studies, there's something wrong in the way you are not be even as kind as the headmaster who actually addressed him in that specific manner. So I think we need to really open up so that even our programs over here are now reflective of that interesting perspective which we can actually go ahead and have, rather than for us to now, where we strictly really have the that thing of here are the sciences, here are the arts, here are the humanities, even in the humanities where you cannot cross over some of the various subjects. But I mean, thank you very much, Doc, for stimulating the VC to come and tell you that you are not doing your work very, very well. Thank you very much for that. A big round of applause for our presenter. I'm tempted to say it's unfortunate that there are not enough people, but I'm also tempted to say there are enough people today. Because I think if the people who are in here right now, if we really take some of these keynotes we are actually really hearing and listening to, and we really apply them, then we would have actually really achieved what the intention of the research week. I'm talking too much because I was really excited. I was in and out, but it's really an exciting topic. And maybe to just put it on the record, we're trying to do something together actually. A computer scientist and an archaeologist, there's something which we are really believing that we might actually be having something which next time we'll actually have a keynote address on that. Dr. Tumbare, if you can come in he's our chair for the next session. We are running a bit behind, but I'm not really worried. I'm not really worried because of the debate which was actually happening over here. But I just want for you to check your programs in case, because we have got parallel sessions which are about to start in the other venues. So please check your program. If you have got an Android phone, you can go to Google Store and you can download our program, UZ Research Week. We've got an app there, UZ Research Week on the Google Store. Thank you.
Good morning, VC, PVC, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. Our fourth keynote paper is going to be delivered by our Pro Vice Chancellor for Strategic Partnerships and Industrialization, Professor Mboa. I would like to welcome particularly Professor Mboa. He used to be with us in the Faculty of Engineering, and then he left, but he's now back. So on behalf of the Dean and all of us in the Faculty of Engineering, welcome to Professor. He's going to talk on the role of research in bridging the gap between supply and demand of energy in Zimbabwe. I think we are all aware of our current energy problems, not just electricity alone, but also fuel for our cars, etc. And he's going to give us a presentation on that. Professor Hall.
Okay, I hope the technology is working. Actually, I'm standing in for Professor Mashonjowa, who unfortunately is to attend the funeral. So at less than 24 hours notice to do the presentation. Okay, just noting that obviously we are relying a lot on fossil fuels, and that is challenging for us, as given by those percentages for coal, petroleum, and natural gas. So that is essentially that means that as we face any energy crisis, we would need to look at various options. I think we just have here where we indicate the mismatch between demand and supply in terms of electricity, which will be the focus maybe of this discussion, and how with our neighbors we can find solutions. We have had a lot of blackouts that are challenging us, and we're saying, what is the way forward as we face that challenge? Generally, we have a lot of installed capacity, but the challenge is, how old is the capacity? How well maintained and operated is the capacity? And we end up with actually less than 700 megawatts of power against a demand that can go up to a deficit of 900 megawatts. On the other hand, the other thermal power stations are not operating at full capacity. And generally, we also, being part of the Southern African power pool, we import some power from mainly South Africa and from Mozambique. But obviously, with the foreign current challenges that we face, we are in deficit and those blackouts. Just showing the general generation statistics of power, which obviously doesn't meet the demand. So in terms of trying to bridge that gap, we're looking at the role of research. I mean, when I looked at the title, I was a bit worried because it sounded more like industry, education 3.0, where we are saying, what's the role of research? And there's no innovation and the industrialization attached to that. So I think later on I nuanced the whole presentation so that I talk a bit about the way forward that is practical. Obviously, as you've heard, engineers and scientists are not communicators. So I hope in between the lines you get a feel that maybe they might be actually good communicators. Sustainable energy is one way we can look at ethanol and various other sources, geothermal, wind power, solar power. Worldwide, obviously, there's a lot of capacity in terms of sustainable energy, and most of it has not been harnessed. Nuclear energy also is being modularized. I think the Russians have tried to have a small nuclear power plant of 300 megawatts. They are hoping to target 100 megawatts. Obviously, nuclear is challenged, and Germany, I think, has been trying to ban it, even though it's more sustainable than coal and other fossil fuels. And those are points that we can debate on in terms of what kind of technology we can adopt. Obviously, there are safety challenges of nuclear, radioactivity challenges, and I think what happened in Chernobyl in Russia, or former Soviet Union, also health implications that have resulted in thousands of cancer problems, patients from that. So again, you have to look at that. Renewable energy, hydroelectric obviously is very popular. And many people say that, if the inner dam systems in the DRC work, we might actually be, in the whole region, having a lot of energy surplus. Biomass is another. I think, obviously, most people always, as soon as you talk about biomass, they talk about competition with food. But in many situations, like in the sugar industry, you use bagasse as a waste. And I've done a lot of research of that in South Africa and Zimbabwe. And there are indications that, actually you can produce as much as 210 megawatts of power using the sugar industry. Wind, I think it's just for instance, the wind speeds in Zimbabwe are a challenge, roughly about 3 meters per second. So it would really be on a small scale or mostly hybrid production. So we're not gifted in terms of wind. Solar energy is where we can do quite a lot. I think in terms of solar home systems, and I'll talk later more about that. We're gifted in terms of having a lot of solar energy, and that could kind of assist us. So there are a number of takeaways that the original presenter wanted you to take away, that you can reduce reliance on fossil fuels. You think it takes a long time, but I think I can nuance that to say, the approaches that you can take actually to reduce the time. Energy efficiency is another area, and I think it's more generic in terms of other energy types that maybe we are not so good at, like geothermal, in terms of resources. But I think it's looking at it from world scale. In terms of solar energy, I think we can do quite a lot there. That's an example of a solar PV system that actually can supply as much as 550 megawatts to the grid. And a lot of the countries in the north actually have big solar systems, but they have less resources than we have, so we can do quite a lot there. Also, there's use of solar panels, I think, all over. And obviously, whether you're listening to your music or whatever in the village, there's a lot you can do with solar. So in terms of solutions that are proposed, we can use renewable energy. We need more education on public. Obviously, government has to help in terms of helping that technology. So that's the original presentation, and I've gone on to kind of nuance it. And as I did so, I looked at quick win solutions and where do the investors come in. I've termed the new coin like Higher and Tertiary Education Consortia, or consortiums, HTC, that can assist in terms of helping with those quick wins, where you come together from vocational colleges to universities and find solutions in terms of solar systems. Also encouraging companies that use combined heat and power to extend their operations so that they can actually produce electricity. And the sugar industry is a good candidate. I know Ipo Valley has done a bit, but with more efficiency and more funding and firing with coal, you can actually add maybe more than 150 megawatts to the grid. Use of PV solar systems. I think somebody recently did a project where they 2.5 megawatts and they've just connected to the grid. Obviously, there's a lot of scope, and the thing is that we need a situation where higher education and tertiary colleges have a kind of teams around, say, a specific energy system like solar, and they can then work with them and others, learning partners as contributors to help. And I'm predicting that you could actually target having as much as 500 megawatts from solar, if not more. Solid to waste program, I think you have the charade of politics that's happening in Harare, where between the minister and the council, they are playing around Pomona in terms of solid waste, and nothing happens in terms of converting that to energy. That can be done quite quickly, and an example is the plant in Stuttgart. And by controlling the combustion temperatures, you take away the problem with dioxins, which are cancerous. So by using higher temperature operations, you can actually avoid any health effects or environmental effects that are, say, beyond what or can compete with coal. So I think a lot can be done with all municipalities there. I'm emphasizing the role of universities, higher and tertiary consortiums. And I talk about properly functioning NASA, all these kind of financial companies that taking some project of 90 million US dollars into somewhere, could actually do quite a lot in terms of such projects as strategic partners. I hope I'm not creating a job for myself by emphasizing the strategic partnership. Transmission, a lot can be done. I think we have the skills, but we're not engaging those projects that are happening in terms of reducing transmission losses. Rural electrification also, between the technicians, national diploma qualifications, engineers, we can do quite a lot in terms of speeding up electrification. I think the Innovation Hub was a good example of how, with our know-how and knowledge, we can do more than 80 to 90% of the work, and just have a bit of assistance from architects and the structural engineers to actually have a product that can be done in a very short time. Unfortunately, I note that even though there has been some in terms of kind of extension, that 300 megawatts has not been really helping because of the severe drought, actually producing below what they used to produce before that extension. Fail safing, obviously, you need other sources to look at. I'll just quickly go through that. In terms of thermal power plants, a lot can be done in terms of, I'm emphasizing where the invest comes in to assist to innovate, find solutions, and to do a mass-scale industrialization. We could be helping all these thermal power installations, because they have a capacity of about 1,200 megawatts, for example, at Wange, but they're operating much below that. And as universities, we should be able to, with other technical partners and strategic partners, come up with better solutions so that we can produce more from the existing plants. There are logistics and other bottlenecks that we need to address. Upgrading of the small thermals can actually add more in terms of, obviously there's the challenge of the capital. When you talk about 265 million US dollars, but even if it's not available, you can actually do feasibility, pre-feasibility and other, so that when you roll it out, it's much quicker. We're producing less energy. I think at one time we're around 10,000 gigawatt hour, and 2017 we've gone so down. So I'm saying, you can set a target. Say, look, as investors, can we assist to come up with a plan that will increase the power beyond our energy demand? I put it just in a bit target of 12,000 gigawatt hour there. Modeling obviously can help also to look at predicting into the future. The other things I also quickly go through. Wange 7 and 8 is happening, groundbreaking done. We're looking at maybe production of power by 2021. Where are the universities? Can we come in as a learning partner? Can we have agreements with these people so that and it's not only learning, actually we can also provide solutions. I had a set of Johannesburg project where actually we found that the universities could do 2 times better work than the consultants at 25% of the cost and still make a lot of money as investors. So I think we're looking at that to say, where do we come in and how can we help, even with project management and improving technology transfer and approaches. Consider again, a lot can be done. We can be part of that. All these projects, Kariba Dam, the Batoka project, we can come into that. The others are just technical specifications for those projects. Small power projects, collaboration, all those small thermals and small hydroelectric. Solar thermal, quite a lot can be done in all those areas. ESCOM is in a mess. I think the loss days, you're talking about more than 20 billion rand of loss that the power sector is making. So obviously in future, as all these projects roll out, and with excess capacity, we can be exporting and actually helping South Africa. And not celebrating that, we have a small agreement to import from them. So sugar industry and all that. So I think I just nuanced the presentation and said, how do you then move that over to Education 5.0? So I'm not criticizing the person who presented, who prepared the presentation, but I'm nuancing and engineering it into industry, into Education 5.0, with a bit of innovation and industrialization. So I just thought I would make that presentation that way, and I was very fast so that maybe you can dissect and shred this, if you have shredders, and take it to pieces and throw it away. So I hope that everybody will comment and ask. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Prof, for the presentation. Any comments from the floor? There's one right at the back. Yes, please. Right at the back. But in the meantime, whilst the mic is moving, there's some Kange behind.
Thank you very much, Professor, for that presentation. You touched on something that has always been a source of thinking on my part, which is to say there are a lot of projects that are taking place in the nation of Zimbabwe. There are a lot of projects that are being implemented by government which cost a lot of money. Occasionally, some of us are taken on an individual basis and we do consultancies. Should we not be creating a platform to regularize these consultancies, so that instead of my doing a consultancy to the Ministry of Health, my doing a consultancy to any other sector-wide project, it should be done by my department? Because we don't seem to have a mechanism within the university for our expertise to be utilized in projects and consultancies to deliver a service to the nation, which will have all the respectability that comes with our name, guarantee almost of outcome because of our name and the worth of our brand, but it has to be done on a personal level, because I would rather collect all the consultancies on a personal level. Should we not, as a university, be asking ourselves, how are we structured to respond to consultancies? How can we deliver on consultancies so that we actually make money for the university, create an output that is almost guaranteed in terms of quality because of our combined expertise and capacities, and at the same time actually further the needs of our country so that we don't have to bring in consultants from outside. If you look at my sector, which is health, most of the consultants come here, find one of us who actually teach them what to do, they write the report, and they walk away with their US dollars.
Thank you very much. I think I'll quickly respond, obviously, one by one, because I tried to be quick. I fully agree with you, and I think the Vice Chancellor, I'm glad he's here, has indicated that many of us want private personal consultants and throw away the University of Zimbabwe. And then in other situations, we want the University of Zimbabwe, again, all for personal gain. And I think we need to move beyond that suboptimal position and optimize for the whole. I might even be more radical and say maybe government should not offer consultants unless they've offered universities the right of first refusal, so that the universities can be structured as consulting consortia, either as individual universities or as with other institutions, and can respond to any kind of consulting need that any government department has got. And if there's need for involving others, they can come in as development partners if they fund their side, or you can have strategic partnerships with consulting companies out there. Some of them, well, I didn't want to put the T to the chief executive, which some people have done. Some people say chief executive, it's not me. So some of them can actually now be taught to become chief executives and not chief executives by working more closely with universities. So I think I fully agree, and maybe the Vice Chancellor later on might add some more on that.
Thanks very much. I just a short answer to it. I think Mr. Samkanga was part of the team that was putting up the strategy, and I think we would recall that we discussed that quite a bit in developing our outcomes. But I think it doesn't end there. It's contained in our strategy. I would urge people to really read the strategy and the outcomes that we have put down. But it's not just that, it's also that the strategy should speak to what the government does. And we have started, Dr. Tumbari, I think he has 2 teams. I think he's in 2 teams that we are now putting up technical teams that respond to calls. So those technical teams are saying the nation needs to develop irrigation infrastructure, and we have a technical team from using that has been put around to respond to that. But remember, you do it on the basis of Kugono. You just have to show that you are good and competent enough to take up that consultants. So the more you are able to crystallize and say, we present our proposal to government and say we can do this. I think government is extended to us on irrigation systems. We also got, we also have one on token cost. That's the approach. We're already rolling out the strategy in a very practical way, because it's very straightforward, very practical. Can you do it? Do we have the right people to do it? If we need then to bring others from outside, exactly what he said. And that's the reason also for putting him in place. It demonstrates that change in thinking. So I think that's what will happen. So sooner or later, you will find that it will be very difficult for you to have these individual lie consultancies. I call them lie consultancies because as an individual, it's very difficult to do a project that really runs a country. So you go there, lie to them and so on, and then collect some money. By the time they realize you lied to them, you are gone. Something like that. So I think we are getting over them. And I think he has already summed it up very, very well in terms of how do we bring externals into what universities do. But one point to note is that we are not the only university. So as we make those teams, bring expertise from our sister universities and make a team. Don't always feel that it should be use it alone. But let's see what the share for use it is. Thank you.
Thank you. There was a question from the back.
Oh, thank you. I wanted to say 2 things. That a lot of the things that we are referring to when we are talking about energy and the solutions, the whole world is looking at these kind of innovations. And at the stage where we are now, we probably must be thinking, how do we make them usable by Zimbabwe? And now I think we should move forward to actually package these solutions, and perhaps university could be beneficial in assisting this process. For example, when we look at solar panels, solar energy, the university has done something about the lighting, some of the lighting, but shouldn't we be doing a lot more as a university and in terms of demonstration that these solar energy alternatives work? Why don't we have solar panels on the university rooftops, for example, so that the students can actually see that, and the students can also participate in the installation of these solar panels? I think we will be speaking in a more believable way if we, as a university, are actually demonstrating and moving ahead as the leader of a pack, perhaps. And one way of also looking at these solutions is that when you are involving the students, there must be some reward in terms of what you are doing as a student, in terms of some credit units perhaps. We have research projects that carry credit units. And we are talking about innovation, we are talking about implementation, installations of things like that. Shouldn't we have perhaps more credit, more campus-wide credit system for these kind of innovative aspects of our learning so as to encourage it? Thank you.
Maybe to just, she sort of, just to add to what she has actually said, because that's the question which I kind of had. I'm in the process of putting in a solar solution at my house at the moment. One of the most difficult things I have realized is the lack of information in terms of what to do. I've had to do more reading than I wanted to actually go ahead and do around that. So I was really just wondering our role in terms of just guiding, because I mean solar is the current hit at the moment, really guiding the nation purposefully and scientifically in terms of what people have to do, how they can actually go ahead and utilize whatever little resources they might actually have, in terms of probably where they should begin, how they can actually go ahead and scale up, and what to go ahead and expect from that type of solution. And also maybe demystifying or mystifying what can solar actually go ahead and do, and to what capacity can it even be taken back into the ZESA grid. I'm wondering who should, in fact I'm not even wondering, I believe we are the people who are supposed to probably proffer that solution and offer it to whether it is ZERA or ZESA, so that we can actually go ahead and lead that process.
Thank you. Just one more, if there is another.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's not a question as such, but to also add to the discussion that is underway. As a faculty of engineering, in the strategic plan that has just been rolled out, you realize that we have a complete research pillar on energy and sustainable solutions relating to that. And it is our intention to actually have a good, we have a team, a solid team on the ground under the Renewable Energy Program. By the way, we are running a master's program on renewable energy. And in there, we are trying to address all those issues that we are going to be taking on board some of the gaps that we realize are there, the shortcomings, the concerns that you raised, Dr. Apanyengwi, such that everything that is related to renewable energy, we try to be as relevant as possible to the needs of our domestic consumers, as well as the rural areas. There's also a realization that there's so much of energy requirements in the rural areas, clinics, schools, and all that. There are so many disadvantaged people, and we are going out to also have centers that will, or projects that will involve students, but also ourselves as academics and researchers to get out there. The VC talked about irrigation schemes. We are also aiming, and we've submitted some projects, proposals, to also help out in irrigation schemes, which, as the presentation showed, there is a lot of deficit in the energy sector, and most of the irrigation schemes, particularly the smallholder schemes, have closed down because they cannot afford the energy bills. But if we come up with the renewable energy solutions, then they can now be restarted and they can work. So we have efforts in the Faculty of Engineering, Faculty of Agriculture. We are working together as a team to respond to that. So I think under our that research pillar, so much is going to be addressed in that regard. But I would also want, there was a slide which showed some of the projects that are underway and where we could come in as the PVC was highlighting on where we could come in as Education 5.0. We attended a seminar organized by Zera at the end of last year. Actually, they were highlighting that every year for the past 5 years or so, they set aside a research fund. And of those years that the fund has been available, it has never been fully utilized. We are not submitting relevant projects that can actually be funded. So some of the money is there if we enter into partnerships, but we are not packaging ourselves, our proposals such that they can attract funding. So it's one way which we can all, both the humanities and the sciences, can team up and package project proposals that can be considered for funding.
Thank you.
Okay,
if you can respond, if you need to.
Oh yeah, it was a quick one to say that obviously usability is what we are looking at for the first question. In other words, we are actually looking at moving into that where we are, the role model in terms of guiding and assisting to demystify different technologies, including solar energy and other energies in the energy space. And I think one area also that can come up quickly is the issue of gas stoves, beyond even design and manufacture, adaptation, popularization, a whole technology transfer model that is nuanced on reverse engineering to actually reduce price of such stoves and to popularize them in terms of wide-scale usage. Because between solar and gas energy, even if we have excess electricity, you will be well set. It only means we can export more and get more foreign currency. So such projects definitely would need to be popularized and expanded. And thanks to Dr. Panyangwi, obviously the response was given by the Dean there to say that a lot can actually be done so that not only information is provided, but that the faculty through commercial or semi-commercial innovation industrialization arm can actually help with such installations. Obviously, the Dean has responded and wants to engage more on the existing projects. But the critical thing is to go beyond university faculty linkages and rope in the technologists, the technicians, the artisans, and even the those below artisan level that have a kind of certificate, we call it foundation certificate, so that the whole continuum of technology is covered. You don't expect a professional engineer to be doing the wiring and all those things that they did in the laboratory. You need a whole kind of consortium or team that as the Vice Chancellor has indicated, can collaborate with UZ and provide solutions. I think I just want to touch on what the humanities presentation earlier was indicating, to say that as long as you are not problem focused and solutions focused, what is the solution? If the solution requires that you know a bit of mathematics, a bit of history, a bit of art and design, architecture, then you need that combination of skills to provide the solutions. And I think there's a book, Teaching Elephants How to Dance. I don't know whether that's the correct title, about IBM, how they actually went away from technology to the soft approaches, trying to come back from collapse by being solutions focused. What are your problems as a bank? And these are the solutions that are interdisciplinary. So I think that's the way we're going. And lastly, I just wanted to say, Leonardo da Vinci, what was he? He was an engineer, he was an architect, he was an artist, he was a painter, he was a designer, he was He was 10 professions in one, and up to now you marvel at what he has done. There are some designs actually that show that some of the painters and artists of the old order designed helicopters. They designed tankers for the battle. Technologies which were only realized maybe 300, 400, 500 years later. So I think it's about being a full human being and not about polarization between the two. So I just wanted to add to that discourse as well. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, PDC. Before we conclude this presentation, I was asked to talk a bit about Kariba, what's happening at Kariba Dam. So if you don't mind, if you could put up just 2 slides that need to explain. It's a folder written Dr. Tumbare.
I just wanted to give them a bit of help, like, we also need, I think that's where the humanities come in, to also look at reality, what is on the ground. And I think that's where the humanities and the science would come together. We've done a study on sustainable energy for children in rural areas. And I remember we did it with UNICEF. And the director of UNICEF was talking about pylons which fly, above. Sometimes the electricity so far in the rural areas is there. But what are the issues to do with the economics of it? The affordability of it? We can have it being produced, but I think we need to be up there, innovating, but also looking at the reality of what is our society like? What is this product we are bringing? And how will it be taken up by the people? Because of those issues of social and economic issues, they are very important.
Want to respond, or it was a comment? Thank you.
I think I fully agree. There was one study that was done in Ghana before they embarked on working up and improving their economy, where they showed that the poor people, also in Zambia, were paying 5 times the normal price of energy, because they were using paraffin, they were using firewood, they were using candles. So as you nuance affordability, you need to look at what's happening in reality, as she has indicated. It might be that in the long term, proper power supply is not necessarily unaffordable. And if it's not affordable, you can then suggest a policy where you can say you can have different pricing systems. And I think that's being done already, where we say for irrigation you pay less for power, for mining you pay much more in US dollars even, and so forth. So I think those issues are very important. I agree with you, Professor Feresu, but they have to be put into the context of facts and figures. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. As I mentioned, I was requested to just make there are just 2 slides. Kariba Dam, the capacity of Kariba Dam on its full is about 181 billion cubic meters of water. But out of that, only 1/3 of it, or 61 billion cubic meters, is what is used for hydropower generation. The other 120 or so billion is what we call dead water. You can still use it for water supply, for boating, for agriculture on the lake, for the wildlife that surrounds Lake Kariba, etc. But for hydropower generation, you only use about 60 billion cubic meters of that water. So when we talk about the percentages at Kariba being 50% full, whatever, we are talking about the top 60 billion cubic meters. And if you recall, when you are doing hydropower, you are converting potential energy, which is the head of the water, into kinetic through the penstocks, into mechanical to turn the generators, and then into electrical, and then the water is released into the river. Now the table at the top shows you the situation at Kariba as of 1 August, and also the situation what it was last year in terms of lake levels. I'll show you the next chart just now. We are currently, as of 1 August, the lake for hydropower generation is 23% full. Last year we were 85% full. So you can actually see the difference which is there. We both at Kariba North Bank, which is Zambia, and Kariba South, which is us, Zimbabwe, we have both put in the 300 megawatts extension that we did, particularly primarily to produce peaking power. The peaking power happens during, particularly in the evenings, from about 6 p.m. to about 9, 10 p.m. when everyone is at home watching TV, cooking, etc. And early in the morning, the showers before going to the school runs, etc., the breakfast, and roughly during lunchtime. That's when these new generators extension are supposed to produce the power so that we don't import peak power because it's more expensive than the normal peak, the power that is generated during the day. One important thing, once you've generated electricity, you can't store it. It has to be used, so to speak. So everyone in the region wants peak power, and therefore this is why it's expensive. But at the same time, we should actually, as a region, as SADC, utilize the differences we have in our peak hours. The West is roughly an hour behind us in the middle, and the East is roughly an hour or so ahead. So there's slightly some differences in our peaking in that respect. Now, hydropower stations are supposed to be used primarily because of the ease in operating them. They are not supposed to run as base stations. Thermal power stations, nuclear power stations are the ones that are supposed to generate the base power throughout the whole day, because you don't stop them once you start running them. Now, with the problems we're having at Wange, Kariba has basically become our base station. And this is why you see the graph that's coming in. If I can have the next graph. I can operate, yes. Now, we have the minimum operating level. I hope this will show. This 475.5, this line, black line here, is the minimum operating level. Once water level gets to this level, we cannot generate electricity because the turbines will start sucking air and they will have pitting and they damage the turbines. The upper operating level is this red line. We should ordinarily not operate above this curve because the spillways at Kariba cannot take the maximum design flood. They can only discharge 9,000 cubic meters a second, whilst the design flood is about 18, almost double, 18,000 cubic meters a second. So the moment that we see that the water level is near here, we open the gates. This is why we say we are spilling at Kariba, is to try to be within and operate below this upper curve. These other curves you see are the various seasons, but the current one, the worst one we've had, is 95, 96 one, which is this curve. So we're operating almost at the minimum operating level. This is the 2018-29 curve, and you can actually see what's going on. And we are almost getting to the minimum operating level. Thank you.
another round of applause. I'm not sure who we are cheering for here. We had a fantastic presenter, our PVC, who was proxy. This is probably, Professor Mashojua is in a very interesting position where a whole PVC proxies on his behalf. I'm going to call him and tell him that you did a decent job on his behalf. And then, so our PVC, and then our chairman, who also then presented at the end over there. I'm sure we all see the concern, and I'm really hoping that as we go ahead and really actualize our strategic plan, we really actualize it, especially around these things which are tangible. Because I'm almost thinking that everyone knows that we have got a power problem. If UZ and all the universities were to be associated with the solving the power problem, I think as universities will never be viewed as ivory towers ever again. If we were to really, because this is really topical and it's really pertinent. In fact, I think maybe the issue of power is only welcome, lack of power is only welcome by our UBAs. Because I'm sure not bathing in the morning becomes fashionable for the young men who are actually around. Another round of applause for our presenters now and in the area. We have got a packed program. We have got a packed program today and for the rest of the week. I really, really urge you for us to do our planning properly, because I mean there are some real fantastic presentations all over. And I think from the presentations which we had this morning, which are on the two extreme ends, if you want, of sciences, it's very, very clear that you should really not just be following things which have topics which you understand. Really, let's go ahead and read the topics, because where you might really be required might be nothing to do in your normal area of operation, so to speak. So let's really go ahead and look at our program and also encourage the other guys who are in the departments or at individual consultancies, wherever they might actually be, so that we really go ahead and participate for the rest of the week. Good morning.